Hello guys, GST 111, use of English. Let's quickly talk about grammatical name and functions. Grammatical name and function. And today we'll only be looking at two aspects, which is what? Gerund and what? Participia phrase. So gerunds and what? Participia phrase. Now, for gerundive will start with a word ending with what? Ing. While for participia, we start with a word ending with ing or en. So, first clue you should have is gerundive starts with a word ending with ing. Participia starts with a word ending with ing or en. Now, how will you now be able to differentiate between gerund and participia completely? That is, for gerundive, if you have group of words that are underlined and with a word ending with ing at the beginning and there is no comma here, and then we had some other words that are not underlined. We had some words here that are not underlined. Now there is no comma. It gives you almost a perfect clue that it could be a gerundive. Do we get? And another thing that needs to complete your clue is that if you remove this underline aspect and the remaining part does not make sense, if you remove the underlying aspect and the remaining part does not make sense, then it's a gerundive phrase. But if you remove it and it still makes sense, or there is comma, because most of the cases, because there is comma, by removing it is going to make sense. Because there is no comma, by removing it is not going to make sense. So if there is no comma, if you remove this underlying part, the remaining part, most cases will not make sense. If there is comma, if you remove this underlying part, the remaining part, most cases it makes sense. So use the idea of both comma and making sense or not making sense to differentiate between gerundive and participial phrase. Now, for instance, let's treat two examples. Let's dismantle. Now, say ensuring adequate transfer of knowledge underline is the solution to the current inflation. Now, look at this sentence. Ensuring adequate transfer of knowledge. Now, there is no comma after the underlying word. There is no comma after the underlying word. And it's starting with the underlying word is starting with a word ending with ing. And there is no comma. So those 2 points have given us a clue already that this could be a gerundive phrase. Of course, this is a gerundive phrase. Not even this could be. If you did not even have the last aspect to it, you could conclude that this is a gerundive phrase. But to just be perfect, the fact that there is no comma starting with ing, and at the same time, if you remove this underlying aspect, the remaining part does not make sense because if I meet you and if I met you and I told you is the solution to the current inflation, does it make sense? If I told you that, it doesn't make sense, right? That's just it. If I say, uh, is the solution to the current inflation, and maybe along the way we are talking, and I just said, is the solution to the current inflation. Can you see? Does that make sense? It doesn't. So because this does not make sense, and at the same time, there's no comma here, and we have our ing ending the first word here. So we can conclude rather that this guy is what? It's a gerund. Do we get that? So now let's deal with one more example. So here we say driven by the need to curb inflation, comma, the president encouraged homegrown homegrown products. Now, this is the last example before we call it off. We meet in the next video. We are going to do a lot of things in the next video. Now, driven, like I said, for a participia, this is not even a gerundive now. This is not a gerund. Like, in fact, without checking all other aspects, you should know, because a gerund really start with a word that end with ing, not en. So having en here, forget about gerund. But don't conclude yet. Still check other aspects of how to know whether something is a gerund or a participia. Now you see there is comma here. We have more clue. Perfect understanding. Now, another thing is that if you remove the underlying aspect, the remaining part, it makes sense. If I told you the president encouraged homegrown products, it makes sense. In fact, without telling you the reason, you know the reason why the president encourages, because of the need to curb inflation. But without telling you this aspect, if I told you the president encouraged homegrown products, it makes sense. So, because the remaining part makes sense, when the underlying part is being removed and there's a comma here and it ends with either en or ing, such is what a participial phrase. So take note of that. See you in the next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe.